In this video, I want to share with you 8 ways being emotionally intelligent puts you in the driver's seat. And by in the driver's seat, I mean by in control of your life, in control of your responses to things. You're not like just on autopilot and have these automatic responses to when you feel disrespected or when somebody comes at you crazy and says something to you. But first, let me go ahead and establish what emotional intelligence is if you've never heard it before or you've never watched one of my videos. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions and to recognize and influence the emotions of others. All right. Now that we got that out of the way, the first way being emotionally intelligent puts you in the driver's seat is that you start to respond from integrity versus reacting from your triggers. Okay. When you start to develop emotional intelligence, you start to develop a better sense of responding to things rather than just lashing out because you're activated. And when I say activate, I mean because you're triggered, man. Somebody done said some shit to you that's really just like kind of just throwing you off. And you feel that sense of where I got to check this person automatically. I got to say something to them, put them in their place. When you start building that emotional intelligence and when you start becoming a bit more emotionally mature, you start to realize that it's better if you respond from a place of integrity. Okay. Integrity is that place of groundedness, man. That place of being solid. That place of where, like, I don't got to prove my point to you. I know who I am. That's integrity, man. It's staying on your square and not letting life kind of knock you off of your square so easily. But when you lack emotional intelligence, you often react and overreact to being triggered. Somebody could cut you off in traffic and you might have to you might drive up on their rear end just to like let them know that you got pissed off. Or you might drive by them and give them the finger or something just to let them know that they pissed you off. You're reacting to a trigger as opposed to, just kind of like letting the moment kind of settle, soften, and just really picking and choosing your battles and realizing that you don't always have to react to things. You have the power of choice. All right. And that's what being emotionally intelligent does. It gives you more power to choose how you want to respond in certain situations. Number 2 is that you learn to navigate tension and discomfort in your life better. When you start to develop more emotional intelligence, you develop the ability to sit within discomfort. I've talked about this in some of my other videos, but I think it's really important. And I always want to reiterate this point. You become better at being uncomfortable and dealing with like tension. You know what I mean? Like, say you get around somebody and maybe you don't like them, or you might think they don't like you. It can create a bit of tension within your body, and you'll start carrying yourself in a certain way around that individual. But the more emotionally intelligent you become aware of this type of stuff. You become aware that, hey, I might not get along with that person. And it's not the end of the world if I don't. I just know how to navigate when I interact with this person. You know what I mean? I don't have to walk on eggshells, but I just know that, hey, we don't mesh too well, but I still know how to walk in integrity. I don't have to be a dickhead. I don't have to be an asshole to the person. So that's what emotional intelligence will do as well. It puts you in the driver's seat in how you choose to show up in life, how you choose to respond to people that you may not get along with. You might have a problem with a coworker. We all have these issues that pop up in our lives. But the more emotional maturity you start to develop and the more emotional awareness you start to develop, like I said, you're going to develop that power of choice. You're also going to learn how to sit in being uncomfortable. You'll start to like recognize what it feels like in your body, man, and develop a better relationship with it so it doesn't dictate your behaviors. I used to struggle with that quite a bit, where when I got triggered or I got activated, I would react from that place. I didn't take the time to pause and slow down and get myself back grounded and learn how to respond from that place. So that's what being emotionally intelligent is going to do. It's going to give you the power to be able to do that. Number 3 is you start to recognize emotional patterns better. You start to recognize the patterns of yourself and the patterns of others too. This is a gift that you give yourself, man. There's nothing better than starting to really become in tune with when your body starts to shift. And I mean on an internal level. Say somebody said something to you, like, you're a fucking idiot. I don't like you. You know what I'm saying? Somebody says that to you and that shit hits you deep in your soul. And you're like, what? Where did that come from? What did I do to you? Or you might get defensive and get into fight or flight. And now you got to defend yourself, right? You start to develop these types of patterns and shifts that happen in your body when somebody says something, when somebody does something to you. And once you can start to recognize this, man, once you put your third eye, whatever you want to call it, whenever you start to put that on the shifts, again, you take control of your life. You gain more power over yourself, because when you don't recognize these emotional shifts within yourself, you become a slave to them. You're always the victim to it. You don't have control, man. So it's really important to develop that emotional intelligence so that you can start to recognize when things are happening outside of your body, how they're affecting you on the inside of your body. Because once you can understand that, like I said, you're going to gain more control over how you respond to everyday shit in your life, man. And this is a gift that you really want to start giving yourself, man. The fourth way being emotionally intelligent puts you in the driver's seat is that you stay grounded when things get shaky. All right. You don't get rattled so easily. Life is always going to have storms coming our way. We're always going to have challenges coming our way. But the more you develop that emotional intelligence, the more you develop your self-awareness and the ability to stay grounded within yourself, the less you will get knocked over by a strong gust of wind in life. Okay. You know, somebody said, like I said, I'm always going to go back to these examples of somebody saying something to you, because these are stuff that we deal with on a daily basis. Somebody looked at you a certain way. Somebody said something sideways to you a certain way. You know, these are things that trigger us. Sometimes we don't even notice it. We go from 0 to 1,000. Somebody said something, and all of a sudden you're in this state where it's like, what the fuck? How did I even get here? You didn't piss me off. I got to say something to you. But the more you develop that skill of emotional intelligence and being more emotionally aware, you start to realize when you're getting shaken up a little bit on an internal level. And again, you start to realize that I ain't got to respond to this. Or maybe I do need to respond to this, but I need to let myself get a little bit more calmed down before I respond to it. That's what I mean by staying grounded when things get shaky. It's becoming more like emotionally resilient. It's being able to bounce back from things a bit faster and not getting knocked down for days and weeks just because, life threw a challenge at you. We all respond differently to things, but the more you can develop this skill, the easier you're going to be able to stay grounded, man. Number 5 is that you don't let your emotions dictate your behavior. If you can't recognize your emotional state, if you lack that emotional intelligence and that self-awareness, your emotions will dictate your behavior. Someone will say something to you and you will automatically react based off of your old conditioning, based off of ways you've seen how to handle certain situations like that. And that's what's really tricky here, man. We don't realize that we're operating from a place of like conditioning. Like, just not to make this too long, but like I grew up in New Jersey, man. I'm an East Coast boy. I live in the South, and I've had to learn how to kind of like tone down certain things, how I speak. I know at times I used to come off very aggressive when I got agitated and I got pissed off and stuff like that. Even in my relationships, if you watch my content, I talk about this stuff in my past relationships. I wasn't good at handling like conflict, and I used to get defensive and have to over explain and things like that. And that would dictate my behavior in my relationship. And I wouldn't show up in the healthiest of ways when I got super activated. So, like I said, becoming more emotionally intelligent is going to put you in the driver's seat. You're not going to let your emotional state dictate your behaviors as much. It may happen every now and again. We're all human. We ain't perfect. But for the most part, the more you can strengthen this muscle of emotional intelligence, the better your life is going to be, because you're going to start to be more in control and pick and choose how you show up to the bullshit that is going to come your way. And the bullshit is inevitable. It's coming. So you want to sharpen that skill of choosing how you respond to things. And sharpening that skill comes from developing emotional intelligence. All right. Number 6 is you know how to recalibrate. Now, what I mean is, say when that strong gust of wind comes, say your girl then said something to you, your coworker then said something to you, and you get shaken up a little bit, right? When you're emotionally intelligent, you know how to recalibrate. Because when you're not calibrated, you're not in alignment. You're not in integrity. You're kind of sidetrack, you're scatterbrained. You know, you're not yourself, like a Snickers commercial. So when you develop this skill, you learn how to get back grounded, how to get back to zero. And how do you do that? For me, man, it's learning how to tap into your breathing, man. Your breathing is the key that holds things together. You know, and I think a lot of us overlook this. We don't even know this. I used to struggle with this too. But once I discovered the power of your breath, the power of conscious breathing, what I mean by conscious is intentional. It means you know that you're doing it. It's not something that's in the background. Like, for example, think about breathing, right? Follow me here. When I talk about breathing, it's something that's so automatic, you don't even realize that you're doing it because your body just does it naturally, right? But when you put awareness on it, when you put intention on, whoa, taking a deep breath. Athletes do this too a lot. Inhale through your nose, exhale out through your mouth, man. This allows you to calibrate yourself, recalibrate yourself, get yourself back to zero, man. Get yourself back to square one so that you're going through life from a more place of like calmness. You're not going through life from a place of tension or overly activated or overly stimulated. And this is where you want to be, man. This is where, you know, you have more mental clarity. This is where better decision making come from. It's from being able to calibrate yourself when you are misaligned. The seventh way that being emotionally intelligent puts you in the driver's seat is that you become more adaptable when life has detours. Think about this. You're driving down the road, you're trying to get to work, and there's construction work going on. They done rerouted your ass over here. Now you're about to be late, right? But the more emotionally intelligent you can become, the more adaptable and understanding you become when things aren't going the way that you need them to go. You become more flexible. You become more emotionally flexible. You know, the construction workers may send you on a detour and maybe you used to kind of be like, man, fuck, man, I'm going to be late. And you kind of overreact. But once you start working that muscle of emotional intelligence, you start to realize it is what it is. I'm going to take a deep breath and I'll get to work when I get to work. If I'm going to be drastically late, I'll make a phone call and tell my boss, hey, guys, there was some construction work that I didn't realize I'm going to be a couple minutes late. It's that simple. There's no need to get all bent out of shape. There's no need to take it out on somebody else. There's no need to let your emotional state get so overly wound up that you lose control of yourself. This is what emotional intelligence does. Puts you in the driver's seat, gives you more power and more control over your responses. Fellas, if you're getting any value out of this video so far, do me a favor and hit that like button. I really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you know when I make more videos just like this. Now, for this last way that being emotionally intelligent puts you in the driver's seat is that you start to enjoy the ride of life. When you are emotionally intelligent, you start to just be more present. You start to just accept where you are, what is going on. You stop trying to control every little thing. You start to just be more in the moment. And what that does, man, you know, not to get too like hippie or anything, but that's where the beauty of life is, man, when you can live in the present moment. So when you become more emotionally intelligent, you stop trying to control everything. You become more self-aware. You start to just realize what you can control, what's within your power, and all the rest of the bullshit, you let it go. And when you start to let it go, you can kind of like cruise through life a bit better. That's not to say that things are not going to pop up. You still going to have problems. There's still going to be things that pop up. But the more emotional mature you become, you can start to just choose how you handle those swings that life is going to throw at your ass. They're going to throw some haymakers at you sometime. So build the emotional intelligence, man. Start working this muscle. Start becoming more present. Start working on your awareness of yourself, man. And life won't be so heavy at times. If you enjoyed this video and you want to dive deeper into emotional intelligence, emotional mastery, be sure to book a free call with me. I'll leave the link in the description. I do a free call just to see if we're fit, just to kind of see where you are on your journey and to see if we're a match. Not everybody is a match, all right? Also, if you enjoyed this video and you want to check out more content on this, be sure to check out my playlist on emotional intelligence. I'm going to leave it floating somewhere on the screen for you. Y'all check that out, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.